What's up, everybody? This is Dell, and I'm going to go through what I've been watching lately. I know I stopped doing these videos. I was doing them every month for a while and going over everything I watched over the month. And I stopped doing them for a while because it's really tough to get these videos all done, right? And they're long videos. But I haven't done one in a while, and I just wanted to talk movies, right? So this is a great way to do it. Just let's talk about what I've been watching. Let's get to it. We're gonna start here at the bottom of the screen down there, and we're just gonna work our way up to the end of March. You can see this is towards the end of February, and we're just gonna go up to the end of March, and let's see how much of I remember, even, to be honest with you. All right, so Wish is the first thing down there at the bottom of the screen. Wish is an interesting movie. We get this young lady here, and she's growing up in this kingdom where there's one guy who kind of runs things, but everybody is living in blissful harmony, and he is the wish granter. He grants. Well, I take that back. He doesn't always grant wishes. Everyone gives him their wishes, and he decides which ones to grant and which ones that he just keeps. And the other part of that is that any time that someone makes a wish and gives it to him, they immediately forget whatever it is that they wished for, which is a weird thing to include here. But for me, um, but anyway, she is interviewing to be his apprentice, and she realizes what he's doing and kind of calls it into question. And he kind of sends her away, and she's trying to figure out a way to get around that because he shouldn't be the only one to be in control of who gets what. And bada boom, bada bing, she comes upon a way to do the same or combat him. Well, she got her wish granted from another source, basically, and he gets wind of this, he doesn't like it, and we get clash. This is a really interesting movie. I think that on the surface level, we just go surface level with this movie. A lot of people will enjoy it. Kids will enjoy it. They'll enjoy her as the protagonist. If you dig a little bit deeper is where it gets controversial, and depending on which way you lean and how open-minded you are or aren't, could determine your preference for this movie, or your how you like this movie. Um, because quite honestly, I'm gonna be straight up front with you. This is pretty much an atheist type movie. Okay, we get a lot of atheist ideals, or at very least, a lot of pushback against the idea of God and being in control of uh, answering your prayers. So they handle it pretty solidly. It could have been handled a little bit better in that the drama fell a little flat for me. But yeah, that's where it is. I give it 3 stars out of 5. If you're familiar with Letterboxd, everything is 5 stars, up to 5 stars. So that is where I land. 3 stars, meaning I enjoyed it, but it's like just on the good side of positive. All right. Next movie here is Butterfly in the Sky. Butterfly in the Sky is a documentary about Reading Rainbow. More specifically about LeVar Burton and what he did and what he accomplished as the host of Reading Rainbow. Really good watch. I'm a little I was a little too old to grow up with Reading Rainbow. My kids watched Reading Rainbow, but I definitely grew up with LeVar Burton from his Roots days, and then Star Trek: The Next Generation. And yeah, I did get to watch a few episodes of Reading Rainbow too. So this is really well done. 4 stars from me on Reading Rainbow. Next here is, I'm gonna pair these two movies. I'm gonna skip this one here in between. We're going with the Addams Family and the Addams Family Values. I gave 3.5 stars to both movies. If you're familiar with the TV show, and by most people are, because these movies have been in the zeitgeist for quite a while. These are both movies from the 90s, and then there was the animated reboots or animated version that came out a few years ago. So most people are familiar with this, and I thought these two movies were pretty well handled. Um, they have some flaws, some gaps in logic, but they're fun. They're fun movies. If you want to hear more in-depth conversation about these movies, especially Addams Family Values, my last movie swap, well, it wasn't really a movie swap. This is a movie swap extra. I think I called it, or half swap or something like that. But anyway, that my guess was The Monkey, and for him, Addams Family Values is a very important movie in his life and his all-time favorite movie. So we had a really good conversation about that movie. If you haven't seen that, please check out that conversation. Um, I will say that uh, people who are familiar with The Monkey sometimes try to be a little bit distant with him, and I understand both sides, both arguments here, and he's been on my channel several times in the past, and there were some issues with one of his visits, and another one of his visits got really emotional, really hard to watch for some people. So go into that understanding that he this movie again is very important to him, and but also knowing that he handled himself really well in this particular case, and I'm really proud of what The Monkey did on my channel. So shout out to The Monkey if you're watching this. Next movie, let's just move on. Let's get back to this one. The Supremes at Earl's All You Can Eat. This one, an interesting premise here. You can see this is a group of friends here. The ladies at the top are our Supremes. They're not the Supremes, the music group. They are not them. This is not a biopic of any sort. What it is these young ladies, they grew up together, or two of them grew up together. Another one came along, joined the group later during their high school years. They got really good friends, and they ate at Earl's All You Can Eat all the time. That's where they hung out at, and they got to be known as the Supremes of this diner because there were three of them, the Supremes. Blah, blah, blah. So yeah, the movie is set, years and years ago, and then we flash forward. There's some things that are happening with them later on in life. They're adults and they have adult issues, and the men in their lives and the families in their lives, and it's a lot happening in this movie. I think that it got to be too much melodrama for me personally. Um, it was not a bad movie, so I put it right down the middle, 2.5 stars. So I can't say I quite enjoyed it, but it did hold my attention, and part of that is this cast. The three ladies here are all fantastic actresses, and I really enjoyed them. So I would say give it a watch if you're into a movie that has a little more melodrama. Then this might work for you. I thought it was just a little too much, a little too saccharine, and just not quite earning everything that happens at the end of the movie. Next is The Brutalist, the many-time Oscar nominated movie. Off the top of my head, I don't even remember if it won any Oscars. This, I would say overall 3.5 stars. So it's not going to be on my top 10 list of 2024 or anything like that. But it was a solid movie that probably would have been in my top 10 had it been a lot shorter. And if you've heard me talk about movies before, about runtimes before, you have to earn the runtime for me. I don't mind that your movie's 3.5 hours if the story justifies it. If it takes 3.5 hours to tell the story properly. In this case, I thought 2.5 hours would have been enough, maybe more than enough, to tell this particular story. It is a good story. We have this gentleman who came over from Nazi Germany, and trying to find his way in America. He's he's really an architect, but he takes work as a furniture designer with his cousin. He has a falling out. His social skills aren't the greatest. And then we follow him the rest of his life. Again, Adrien Brody he's a good actor, and he's pretty good here. I don't know that I would say best actor good, but I'm sure others would disagree. Um, and overall, again, it's really just the drag on this movie that knocks it down for me. But yeah, definitely check it out as one of those uh, Oscar type movies. Moving up the ladder here, we have Fall. Fall, I gave it the same score, 3.5 stars. Honestly, I might even be bumping this up to 4 stars. I enjoyed Fall that much. We got these two young ladies who are they're climbers, and right at the beginning of the movie, there's a tragic accident involving one of their boyfriends. Um, while they're climbing, while all of them are climbing together, he falls to his death. One of the young ladies goes into grieving, and the other friends like, hey, you've been doing this long enough. You need to get back out there and just get back on the horse, so to speak. So they decide to climb this tower that's here in this picture, and it's just a tower standing in the middle of nowhere, and there's really not much to grab onto, and decide this is the way you're gonna get back into the swing of things. And of course, things start going wrong. There was a twist at the end that was kind of heavy handed, and yeah, this is the young lady whose boyfriend is grieving, and this one is the one who's getting her back, trying to get her back out there. um yeah, so the twist at the end might throw some people, pull some people either out of the movie or just make you roll your eyes because it could be a bit much. But it was okay. The twist part, I really enjoyed the rest of the movie. Next is Long Legs, and again, I'm at that 3.5 star range. And just to give you a little insight into my head, unless it immediately knocks my socks off, I'll kind of stick it. And but I do like it, and I know that I like it. I'll stick it with 3.5 stars, equivalent of a 7 out of 10. Um, if I like it, kind of like it, I'll kind of slap 3 stars on there. Um, so this one, I did like the movie, and honestly, the problem here is for me is that it should have been better, but it's held back by the same thing that a lot of you praise the movie for. And that thing is actually a person. That's Nicolas Cage. I found his performance to be utterly ridiculous in a bad way. Usually Cage is ridiculous in a great way. I did not realize that that was the picture here. um, so I hadn't clicked this far before. Um, Usually Cage is ridiculous in a really good way, and I enjoy Nicolas Cage. Even in bad movies, he's awesome. In this case, I just thought he was ridiculous. The way he was talking, way he moved, everything about him screamed, psychopath killer in a bad way. Whereas I think a much more subtle performance would have benefited this movie. I didn't need him to be so over the top. All right, I need him to be doing the funny voice and making all the noises. I didn't need that from him in this particular movie. The movie was creepy enough as it is, and it borrows a lot from Seven and Silence of the Lambs. And yes, I get there are parts of Silence of the Lambs, especially where Anthony Hopkins is doing some over the top things, but that's not the bulk of his performance. Here, Nicolas Cage is just on tilt the entire time, and it really bothered me. The rest of the story was very well executed, so I won't knock it down so far. 3.5 stars is where I land on Long Legs. Next is Sly Lives, aka The Burden of Black Genius. This is a documentary about Sly of Sly and the Family Stone, Sly Stone of Sly and the Family Stone fame. And we get we get a lot of what was happening behind the scenes with Sly. We knew about the drug addiction, and we get a lot of talk about that and how it affected him. And we also get a lot of the way he made music and his influence. And we get a lot of talking heads here who you might recognize talking about that influence, and some people who were in the Family Stone and close to the group talking about the addiction and what it was like traveling with him and all those kinds of things. And we get a picture of Sly by the end. And what would have maybe even taken it even higher for me was that Sly is still alive, but he does not sit down for an interview for this. I mean, we do see him uh, in present day. Um, we do see him, and but we don't get to hear from him. So again, and maybe this is a consequence of his mental condition right now, which uh, they hint is not the best. Okay, um, so I can't fault the movie, but so much for that. But otherwise, it's a fantastic documentary. Directed by Questlove. He also did another Oscar-nominated documentary a few years back about a soul music that was happening in the middle of New York, music festival happening in the middle of New York right around the time of Woodstock, and also fantastic. So Questlove, uh, member of the Roots, founding member of the Roots, the world famous Roots, the legendary Roots crew. I just made a bunch of old hip hop fans cringe when I said that. So legendary Roots crew. He's the drummer with the huge afro. He's on Jimmy Fallon now with the rest of the group, but he is turning into a fantastic documentarian and a movie geek, guys. I found that out a few years ago. Um, but yeah, this is a really, really good watch. Uh, Next, speaking of music, Bob Marley's One Love. I do call this a 4-star movie. Um, I wasn't looking for some people. A lot of people didn't like this movie, or at least knocked it down. And I think they were looking for more than what the movie was trying to give. In this case, the movie was trying to give, they were trying to give a picture of Bob Marley as a man, but they were kind of trying to contain it to this one period of time. Um, and the movie gave him a pass. I'll be, right up front and clear with it. The movie gave him a pass on some of his own issues and behaviors, namely in his marriage. But I did enjoy the film for what it was. 4 stars. I really did enjoy the acting in this film as well, and I thought that Kingsley Benadir did a really good job um, as Bob Marley, and Lashane Lynch always kills it. So I was very pleased with that movie, but I understand people who were not. And we're gonna move into March right here, and I'm starting with Captain America: Brave New World. Maybe you can see, maybe you can't, but I do have on a Captain America: Brave New World shirt. And me saying that, you might think that, oh well, he loved this movie, it's the greatest movie ever. Not so fast, but I didn't hate it. So a lot of people telling me that this is just a horrible movie, and sorry about that, guys. But a lot of people telling me this was a horrible movie. Reviews were very mixed, and I enjoyed it. I liked it. Like I told you before, it's where I kind of like it, and it gets into it gets a 3. Um, what it did well was the action scenes were pretty solid. They weren't great, right? They weren't great. Um, and I'll talk about that in a minute. I think the big issue here was that it threatened to uh, it threatened to be heavier than it wound up being. So we get a lot of hints uh, at a political movie, a more political movie here, a one that deals more head on with race, and then they just kind of drop the ball and let it go on the wayside. The other issue people had with it was that after 17 years, it plays a lot like a sequel to The Incredible Hulk, um, except with Harrison Ford in the role of Ross, and I was okay with that. That's fine because and I wouldn't say Harrison Ford. This is one of Harrison Ford's best performances, but he was pretty good in the movie. My main issue. Let's go back to that action. You know, it should have been better than it was. Um, it was pretty decent for most of it, but there is a focus issue or a camera proximity issue with this movie. Um, the camera was always a little too close. so it's hard to make out things, and sometimes it was even closer than others. So that was a big issue with it. So people who were there just for action might have been put off by that and not enjoyed it as much. Like I said, the other part, the story is not. It doesn't play as a real Captain America story. We don't get as much of Sam uh, developing as I would have hoped, or a lot of people would have hoped, and that may be another reason a lot of people didn't uh, enjoy it. But yeah, this is really like sequel to the Incredible Hulk, which has kind of been the forgotten movie in the MCU, but now they're kind of bringing it back into the fold even more than they had. And on the political side of things, where they threaten to do it, but then they just don't. They just drop the ball. And I would rather you not do it at all than bring it up and then drop it, right? So they could have done more, but as it was, I did enjoy the movie, and part of that may be just my own personal bias. I'm a superhero geek, so um, yeah, 3 stars for me for Brave New World, and let's work our way up now. One of them days, I had seen in the theaters. My uh, my 2 daughters went with me. No, take that back. Um, my oldest daughter went with me. My youngest daughter was at school. Um, and enjoyed it. Had a good time with it. It's just a fun movie. But I rewatched it because my wife did not go and she still wanted to see the movie. She couldn't go when we did, and so watched it again and had fun again. It's just it plays a lot like Friday. You may have heard it. If you haven't seen it, you may have heard that it plays a lot like Friday. Um, Here we get a I almost said Aquila. Good Lord. Uh, we get Kiki Palmer's character. Um, she is working at a diner, and she's roommates with SZA's character. SZA, now world famous R&B artist, doing her first acting gig, at least as far as I know. And the two of them have amazing chemistry, which is what makes the story go. But yeah, they're roommates, and it's time to pay rent, and their landlord is all over their case about paying them the rent. And when she gets home, or actually on the ride home, because SZA gives her a ride home, uh, she asks, have you guys paid the rent? She's like, sure. And she said, I gave it to my boyfriend who's kind of living there, but not supposed to be, not really. He's just kind of, intruding and staying over with her. You know how things happen with roommates. And she's like, yeah, I gave it to him to go pay it, and he told me he paid it. Well, that is not what happened. The money did not get paid, so the rest of the movie is a quest for them to either find the money or or come up with money to pay the rent on time. The landlord's giving them a deadline of 6 o'clock that night. So yeah, this is one of those movies contained within the space of a day, and it's just fun watching them get into all sorts of hijinks. For me, Cat Williams was the standout here. His character just kind of pops in to be the voice of reason, or he kind of works like the chorus in Shakespeare. The women who stand around and they either give wise sage advice or they're harbingers of doom. He's kind of that. Um, and I had a lot of fun again watching one of them days. So I will recommend it if you're just looking for a laugh, to check out one of them days. Next, Snowpiercer. I had an interesting relationship with Snowpiercer. I had seen the movie, sorta, meaning I put it on years ago. It's a 2013 movie, probably 2014, somewhere in there. I probably then, but I put the movie on and I watched it and I enjoyed what I saw, but I couldn't remember as much because I was kind of going in and out because it's sleeping, dozing off. This is one of those movies I put on late at night and just didn't quite make it through the whole thing. I was like, okay, so I got to rewatch this movie, and never got back to it. And at this time, I found myself with some time. I had the TV to myself, and said, you know what, this is a good time to watch Snowpiercer. So I threw it on, and then really, really enjoyed this movie. A post-apocalyptic movie about this. Everyone in humanity that's left from humanity is on this train. The Earth is frozen over, and everybody's on this train that it continuously runs on this track. never stops, due to the engine. And but it is very much separated by class, and with the wealthy and those in power at the front of the train. And as you go further back in the train, uh, people become less and less fortunate. And our hero here, Chris Evans, he's one of those people who is in the back of the train, and basically it's a rebellion. They're trying to get to the front of the train and trying to take things, either not necessarily take things over, but make conditions fair and equal. And so we get a lot about classism here. And this is Bong Joon-ho, who is a renowned director, fantastic director. This is one of his American movies. It might be, is it his only one? No, I don't think it's his only one. But Snowpiercer is a fantastic watch, 4 stars for me there. Next movie, 1992. And this movie is tangentially related to another movie I'm going to talk about later. This is set during the LA riots of 1992, which happened in the aftermath of the acquittal of 4 police officers in the beating of one Rodney King. However, that is really just a backdrop for what's happening in the movie. It's really a heist movie. Our guy, played by Tyrese here, our main character, he is not part of the heist. He is not a criminal. He has just gotten out of prison not long. He just got this job, security job. He's also, single dad. He's trying to take care of his son, or not single dad, but he has his son. Is he single dad? Yeah, he's trying to take care of his son also. And so he's trying to work this job, and he's trying to hang out with his son, during the day before he goes to work. And, all hell is broken loose with these riots. And he's, when he's at work, he's told to go home because it's not safe. Where he works though is it's in a lucrative place. There's these guys trying to break in and take the money. All right, is it the Reserve of Los Angeles? I'm not sure, but or it's a bank or something like that. I can't remember. But yeah, these guys are trying to break in, and these guys, Ray Liotta is the dad of this group. Scott Eastwood is his oldest son, and really spearheading things. The two of them butt heads a lot, and they're cool. It's a lot of fun watching them back and forth. And Tyrese is doing his dramatic best. He's not a great actor, but he's solid. He's solid here. He's trying to do the opposite of his Fast and Furious thing, and which I get, and I've seen him do in a few movies, so he's never bad. But yeah, so it's a pretty good movie. He finds himself on the opposite side of the heist. They manage to get hold of his son, who has to come into the building with him, and so yeah, he's trying to get his son back from them. So yeah, solid little movie, and I'll say it's tangentially related to another movie, and I'll tell you when I get to that movie, because it takes a real life event or something serious, and kind of just pushes it off to the side, and makes the movie about this other thing with that just kind of happening in the background. So it never really deals with that thing. And in this case, it's okay as the way it's done. And just keep that in mind. The next movie, a kind of real life, also kind of a real life thing. And that is Sing Sing, which got all sorts of love at the Oscars. And I love this movie. I go ahead and tell you, yeah, I gave it 4.5 stars, right up there, right near the top. Colman Domingo, fantastic as always. He is already in prison when the movie starts, so it's not one of those things where we meet a guy on the outside and watch him go in, and then no, he's already in, but he's part of a theater troupe that formed within the prison. He founded it because he was an actor on the outside, and so we watch these men grow together. They recruit someone new to the group who doesn't seem to fit, and they're trying to put on a play. They put on they're trying to come up with something original, something unique, and they manage to come up with something that's a mishmash of all sorts of things. It basically comes off, basically a parody of a million things is what they're working on. And we see them working on it throughout, but we see their relationships build or deteriorate. And we see that there's some of them are working towards appeals on their cases because they were wrongly accused, or they're just coming up for parole. In Coleman Domingo's case, he maintains that he was wrongly accused, and so he just keeps appealing. He's been working on appealing his case, and all of those things work together to form a cohesive film that is just a fantastic watch. So that is probably my highest recommendation from all the movies that we're going to talk about um, here today. Next up is Novocaine. I went to the theater to see that one. Uh, that one was one of those solo theater trips, and it's a fun movie. It's the hesitation in me, trepidation, whatever, however you want to call it, in this case is because it's over the top in ways that it's probably a little too ridiculous sometimes, and it doesn't give us enough of the human thing to make us grab onto it. It's another movie in that John Wick vein. Something happens and you got to go avenge it, and you find out that and this guy is a expert fighter. In this case, it was like you see here, his girlfriend. Not even his girlfriend. The girl he wants to be his girlfriend. The girl he's desperately in love with. She gets kidnapped. They work at a bank, and bank robbers come in and kidnap her, take her hostage as things fall apart during this robbery. So he decides, when the cops decide that they can't help, he's gonna go and rescue her. They do have a date before this, so she seems to like him. Excuse me, and she seems to like him. So he takes upon himself to go rescue her. Now, what we also find out through all this is he is extremely socially awkward, and he has a condition where he can feel no pain, hence the nickname Novocaine that he earned in high school. And he uses that as a superpower pretty much. And it just goes around beating up bad guys, and he's not really built for that. So hence the look on his face here. But it's a fun movie. It's a fun movie. So if you're looking for another action flick in the vein of John Wick, Nobody, Sisu, that kind of thing, this is that, and it's more comedy than most of those other ones. Next is Kraven the Hunter, and at 2.5 stars, as you can see, that's what I gave it. I'm probably nicer, more generous to this movie than a lot of people have. And I think part of that is because I've so many times that it was bad going in. So my expectations were on the floor. And, it was there. They could have done a lot better. Um, Aaron Taylor Johnson, he's just kind of, he's doing his thing, trying to do his thing in the movie. But the script just is kind of all over the place. Some of the action scenes are pretty good, some are pretty bad. But it's there, it goes by. I don't think it's an offense to humanity, like some people have said. It is not the worst of the Sony superhero movies, the Sony Marvel movies. It is not the worst of them. They have several worse than Kraven the Hunter. So this is kind of like right down the middle for me. So 2.5 stars is where I'm falling on Kraven. The next one is a short. This is Ostinato. I believe that's how you say it. And we see this young woman here. She is a musician, and she's kind of a composer more specifically. And she's kind of got writer's block, or she's having a hard time writing her next piece. And she kind of experiments here and there, and she realizes some things about composing. I won't really. Something happens where it doesn't make sense to her, but it works, and she kind of runs with it. I would say check it out. The whole thing runs 7 minutes. The whole thing runs 7 minutes, and if I'm not mistaken, there's no dialogue in it. It's music, all music, and she is the only character, if I remember correctly. So take 7 minutes out and watch it. It's pretty good. So 3.5 stars is where I go. And no, Google, I'm not gonna translate this page. Um, so yeah, Ostinato. It's on Netflix. So maybe before you watch what you're gonna watch, after your 2 hours of scrolling to find out what you're gonna watch, just give Ostinato a look. The Electric State is the next movie, and again, I kind of enjoyed this one, though honestly, I might be knocking it down to that 2.5 star rating. It was pretty fun for the most part, but it was really dumb and not always in the best way. All right, so there's gonna be a phone ring in my video, but anyway, it's not always done. It's not always it's done not always in the best way. Done by the Russo brothers, um, and we get this orphan teen, as I said, hits the road with a mysterious robot to find her long lost brother, and and we get this guy, we get Chris Pratt, and he's really playing Star Lord. Let's just call it what it is. He's playing Star Lord right here, and it wears thin a little bit, but it is fun for the most part. So Electric State got 3 stars from me. Uh, Next, Plankton the movie. If you're a SpongeBob fan, you had to watch Plankton the movie. Yeah, it doesn't look like SpongeBob because everything's computer animated this time, and but it's kind of like the last SpongeBob movie where it was all computer animated. But I had fun with it, and Plankton was one of my favorite characters on the show. I am a SpongeBob fan. I didn't grow up with him. My kids definitely did, and they watched a lot of SpongeBob. And I think I know I watched most of it with them, and a lot of times I laughed a lot harder than they did. There was a lot of stuff in there that just went, right over their heads. But I enjoyed Plankton the movie for what it was. 3 stars, not the best SpongeBob material out there. Go back to the series for that. None of the movies are great. The first one was pretty good though, um, but it was fun. It was a fun time. So yeah, if you like SpongeBob, check out Plankton the movie. I tried to get my daughter, my older daughter, she was home with me. I was like, hey, I'm gonna watch Plankton the movie. Want to watch Plankton the movie? She kind of takes one look at the thumbnail and she's like, oh, none of it looks like that. So she's very, very attached to the way SpongeBob looked on TV. Next was How I Learned to Fly, and this is a tough movie to watch actually. We get this young guy here. If you watch Blackish, you'll know who he is. He was on that show, and he and his younger brother, right? His younger brother is autistic and mostly, well, I won't say he's nonverbal, but he's barely verbal. He says only a few things here and there, and can really put together maybe one sentence at a time. Um, and of course, this is their dad here, played by Method Man. Cedric the Entertainer is the next door neighbor, and what we find out is, well, at the beginning of the movie, they're part of this little family and their mom is there with them. But something happened where the two boys are orphaned and they're trying to basically stay in this apartment where they lived, and eventually they just get evicted. So they wind up living in the older boy's car. This is his last year of high school, so he's trying to get into college, so he's a good kid and all that kind of thing. And it doesn't go down the road of, oh, now he turns to a life of crime. It's not that. Um, He's really just watching him and his brother survive through the whole movie, and it's it's like I said, it's tough to watch because they're homeless a lot of the way. Um, where the movie kind of it just drops the ball in a few places. Uh, One of those is in, well, the reasoning is solid, and what happens is solid, and it leads to one of the most important scenes of the movie. But as things are going on, yes, it's sad to watch, but it kind of drags as it does. So that was a little bit of a problem for me. Knocked it down, and then there's performance of Method Man. Again, if you know me, Wu Tang, I'm a huge Wu Tang fan. Method Man, I don't think he's the best rapper in Wu Tang, but he's probably my favorite rapper in Wu Tang. He's so it kind of hurts me to say this a little bit, but here his performance was so uneven that it kind of threw me off. And he's normally a pretty solid actor. He knows, what he does. He knows his range. He stays in it. Here, for some reason, they decided that he needed an accent. He needed a thick accent from somewhere. I don't know where this accent is supposed to be from. Is this Atlanta? I can't remember if this was supposed to be in Atlanta or not. And so I'm not sure if he decided this, the director decided this, the writer, who decided, but he has this thick accent and he's struggling through it. Especially early in the movie. Later in the movie, like I said, there's one really, really big scene with him and the older son where, all the juice gets spilled, all the tea gets spilled, as they say now. And we find out what's going on with this movie. And he's better in that scene, but still that accent just kind of comes and goes, or he kind of struggles with it. And that was a drawback. And he actually doesn't have a very big part in the movie. Another thing, just, like I said, the drag on it is really what kind of knocked it down. So it could be, a higher score movie, but 3 stars is where I'm sticking with How I Learned to Fly. And that went right to How High, so which also stars Method Man. So quick story time. Where I came to this movie first, I watched How I Learned to Fly, and next thing that happened was there's a podcast I listen to every week called Home Video Hustle. Shout out to Brent and the gang over at Home Video Hustle. If you happen to see this. But anyway, I listen to their podcast every week, and I've been listening to it for years. Highly recommend that you do so. They put a fun twist on a lot of movies, and they just have a blast talking about the movies, whether they like them or not. And I will warn you, this is not one you just put on and play with anybody's around, because there's definitely a lot of 4-letter words flying around with this group. But yeah, really, really good podcast. And sometimes if there's a movie I haven't seen, I'll watch it before the podcast. I'll watch because at the end of the show they'll tell you what they're going to watch next. And if it's a movie I hadn't seen, I'll watch it. And he announced one week that they're next week doing How High. And I was like, wait a minute, I've never seen How High. How have I never seen How High? I'm like, again, one of the biggest Wu-Tang fans you'll meet. How did I not seen this movie? I had seen pieces of this movie. I'd seen parts of this movie, but never sat and watched it. So I was, you know what? We got to watch How High. So, coming on the heels of another Method Man movie, it was just perfect timing. So I watched it, and I should have seen this movie back in 2001 when it came out. This is one of those, when you see a movie matters. And, I've heard that from a lot of people. And it rings true. I am notoriously or infamous for not being a fan of Home Alone. It's a movie I did not see until like a few years ago. And so I missed it, during its magical days of the 90s, whenever. Even then I was too old for it. But seeing it in like 2021 or 2 or something like that. But I didn't care for it much. This is that situation where a lot of people, swear by, this is the funniest thing ever. It's greatest hip hop comedy, blah, 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 blah. Well, for me, it wasn't even a movie as much as it was a collection of skits starring the same 2 guys, very loosely working their way through a semester at college, right? So they have, problems that crop up here and there. And, a few of the skits, I call them skits because that's really what it plays like. A few of them are funny. Most of them weren't, at least to me. So I didn't really enjoy How High that much. So 2 stars is where I land on How High. If any of my brothers are watching this, which I doubt, but if they do, one of them might, they're probably going to give me a hard time for it because they like How High. And most of the people I know like How High. Next movie was The Gentleman. This is Matthew McConaughey just being cool. Basically, he's a gangster, and he's got a marijuana empire out in the UK, and he's looking to get out the game. He's looking to sell it for, I think, $400 million is what he's asking. And there's a guy who's thinking about buying it. He's like, it's not worth that much. And then lo and behold, there's some issues that arise with the problem. Namely, some people try to rob it, so it's not as secure as it once was. And people are trying to lowball him, and people are trying to kill him. And it's a really fun movie. 3.5 stars for The Gentleman. It's that Guy Ritchie style. It's not as so he's known for, before coming doing a lot of his American stuff, he was known for stuff like Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels and Snatch, and it's in that vein. It's definitely him doing a crime, a movie that he draws a lot of comparisons to Tarantino, and I think rightfully so. But this is as not as convoluted as those movies, meaning we know how everything's how all the characters are connected. We know right up front, and we're not jumping back and forth as much. But yeah, lots of crazy things happen. Definitely a fun watch. I'm saying fun a lot, but it's definitely a good time watching The Gentleman. Next is Anora, and Anora also landed in that 3.5 stars for me. This was, I think she won Best Actress, the young lady here, Mikey Madison, and she's a stripper and / prostitute or whatever, and she gets this guy, this guy, he's a rich kid from Russia, and he basically offers her 10 grand to stay with him and sleep with him for a week. I think my issue with the movie, reason I start with my issue is even though I do have it as 3.5 stars, I did like the movie. I thought it was very well acted, very well put together. Sean Baker, very well directed. He's a really good director. But my issues is the couple. I don't. It's hard for me to buy them as a couple, which is what the end of the movie hinges on. The end of the movie hinges on her love for him, or at least they're trying to put it out that way, when all along it's really just her being a gold digger. And it's another podcast I listened to. They talked about Anora, where apparently that's not even enough money for what she did. So I don't know that, but that's what I've heard in that podcast. So yeah, this whole turn at the end of the movie, it doesn't jive, doesn't sit quite right with me. And this character is just pretty detestable. Most of the people in this movie are, to be honest with you. And the one person that they made out to be the villain was his mom, who eventually shows up, because what it boils down to is he before the end of this week decides to marry her, and she, with dollar signs in her eyes, agrees, and his family gets wind of this, and they're like, hell no, that is not what's going down. And they're in Russia while this is happening here in America, and they decide to fly over and try to put a stop to things. And his mom, kind of framed as the villain of the movie, and the whole time I'm like, yeah, I'm not, independently wealthy like they are, but yeah, the way things went down, I'm kind of on her side. And you know what that's going to make me do? That's going to make me knock Anora down a 0.5 star, is what that's going to make me do. So I'm going to go ahead and talk myself out of that 3.5 down to a 3. Everybody else in the world disagrees with me. Everybody seems to love the movie. So yeah, go check it out for yourself if you haven't already. Twisters, another movie. That one's staying at 3 stars. It's just staying there. It's just popcorn fodder. None of it makes a ton of sense. It's just goofy, and the science is questionable at best. And I'm no scientist. Okay, I'm not a science major. I'm not the biggest brain when it comes to science. So me saying it's questionable, that should give you some kind of leeway. I mean, I think I'm a reasonably smart person, so but none of it was making sense to me. Um, a lot of it was not making sense to me, and it just seems to be kind of goofy and offhand. And but that said, special effects were fantastic, and sound was fantastic, and I always forget his name, the pretty guy, Glenn Powell. He was fantastic. He was fun playing the role, and it was a good time. So yeah, I didn't mind Twisters. Uh, just don't go in there looking for like logic. Okay, you just don't. All right, next movie, Tyler Perry's Duplicity. And this is the movie that I was talking about when I said 1992, that movie with Tyrese was tangentially related to it. And uh, well, listen, the reason why it does the same thing, it takes real life situation, in this case, not a real life actual event, but a real life situation that's been heavy in our news over the last 5 years. It's been happening for decades. We know that, right? But it takes it and then kind of shoves it to the side, or uses it, in this case, uses it to propel a plot. And here, what happens is we get a black man who's shot down by a white cop, and it so happens that there's a black cop with him who was his superior, who had taken him out that day to kind of show him the ropes, but they're not really in where they're normally working, so it's supposed to be a quiet day. And I think this is one of those cases where Tyler Perry just, yeah, I'm covering my face on a video, but this is where his writing uh, is already poor, to be honest with you, right? It's already hackneyed and cliched in everything he does, just about everything he does. But in this case, it's also very misinformed about the way just normal things work, right? Or the way people interact. Um, like everyone is at each other's throats right from the beginning of the movie. Lawyers are not very smart in this movie. They're really kind of sorry lawyers. And then there's a lot of easy foreshadowing, where we know we can kind of tell who's the bad guy, and if he doesn't, he's gonna make it painfully obvious for you by before he actually says who's the bad guy here. And in the event of a black man being shot down by a white cop, the white cop is suspended, fired, and all of that's trivialized, right? Um, all of that is kind of made to all of that is used for this other plot, and this other plot there is a who's covering up what kind of deal at the beginning. And so the lawyers are trying to get to the bottom of things. They're uncovering things, and the plot just gets more and more convoluted. It's just all pretty much mishandled. And so by the end, some really nonsensical things happen. And by then I was just way done with the movie. I was too through with it. But so yeah, 1.5 stars is where it lands for me. I've heard it called offensive by some, and that's because of the way they trivialize uh, the catalyst for this story. Um, I don't know if I'm fully there, but I am in the place where I'm getting there, because you could have done a lot of different things, right? Not use this as just as really almost a nothing is what it boils down to, or making kind of both sidesing the situation, and then where it shouldn't have been both sides. And I say that not to say that, oh, the white person automatically guilty. And no, there's a way to do that, to show that okay, maybe in this particular case this person was justified, maybe this person was not justified, but that conversation is not really had, right? It's just like, here, this is that, and then we're going to do a lot of other things right? And one of those things, let's just give you an example. I know I'm going on a long time about this movie. One of those things that I'm going to tell you is that we get someone eventually. We know the cop has been fired, and he feels he's been wrongfully accused. So instead of pleading his case normally, like going to the lawyer who's the main character, instead of going to her and like going to her office and sitting down and trying to plead his case with her and getting her to do whatever, he kidnaps her. And with help from others, and basically almost assaults her, and they got her. It's weird. It's like, why would you do any of this? Right? It makes no sense, and things like that keep happening through the movie. So I'm gonna stop. 1.5 stars for Tyler Perry's Duplicity. And that should bring me to the last movie of March that I watched. Yes, it does. And that is the OG Star Wars, Not a New Hope, not Episode 4, A New Hope. Star Wars, okay? That's what it is called. It's a movie I grew up with. I've seen this movie 1,000 times. And it's still 5 stars for me. I'm not even going to go into why it's 5 stars yet. And the reason why is because I am going back through the entire Star Wars filmography, all the live action movies that were released. And I am currently on the last one. I'm up to the Rise of Skywalker. And fingers crossed, on May the 4th, which has been dubbed Star Wars Day, that I will have a video talking about the entire franchise, ranking the franchise. So that's where I am there. Just know that Star Wars is still a 5-star movie for me. So there you have it, guys. All those movies I watched over the course of a month and a week, roughly. And if you stuck around this long, I truly appreciate it. Just listen to me ramble on about movies. I had to get it off my chest, had to talk about these movies. And again, glad you stuck around for it. That's all I have for you guys. Thanks for hanging out with me. If you have been here before, thanks for hanging out with me again. I catch you next time. Bye.